Oh, I love that sound. That is the sound of nostalgia. Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to another commentary. I am by myself now, but I hope you guys did enjoy that last commentary with my special guest. But today we're doing something a bit more personal, something that means a lot to me, something that has been with me for many years. It's actually, yeah, end of 2009. It's going to become 15 years at the end of this year, and what we're doing today is a commentary on the first 3D platformer I ever played in my life. Not the first platformer, but first 3D platformer. I think that constitutes a lot. This game was made for the PlayStation 3, a console that I got at the end of 2009, and it goes by the name of Ratchet and Clank. Quest for Booty, or Caça de Tesouro as we say in Portuguese. And as you guys are probably noticing, yes, I am doing this commentary in Portuguese. Well, I'm not doing the commentary in Portuguese, but I'm recording the gameplay in Portuguese because I really wanted to show off the European Portuguese stuff. If you don't understand this game's plot, then you can just look up the cutscenes. I think this is just something. Let me be selfish for once. No. The reason why I wanted, the reason why I wanted to do this way is because I want to showcase the European Portuguese dub of this game, and just kind of showcase y'all how I experienced the game as I grew up, because that's probably the biggest reason why PlayStation has such a big hold in Europe, and which by extension Portugal, because they always invested in making dubs of their games. They always wanted to they always wanted to make their games available in each language, and with by covering so many languages that of Europe, they got there. And here in Europe, it's very, like, PlayStation has become the very dominant platform, especially during the PlayStation 3 era, but it was already pretty dominant during the previous two generations. And because of that, yeah, it's pretty popular here. Nintendo would almost be forgotten if it wasn't for the successes of the Wii and the Switch. The Wii U was almost gonna make them flounder if it wasn't for the success of the Switch, which made them more popular. But all right, I'll discuss that. I'll discuss the PlayStation a little bit more later. How did I get introduced to the Ratchet Clank series, and what is the series even about? Well, the Ratchet Clank series it's a series that was made by Insomniac Games, and it started all the way back in 2002 on a PlayStation 2, with the original game simply titled Ratchet Clank. It's a platformer mixed in with a third-person shooter, where you go around many planets as this guy named Ratchet, who has his robot buddy on the back called Clank. Technically, Clank's real name is a giant-ass code, but fuck that shit. Clank it is. And he adopts the name as well, so yeah. But you guys might be wondering, so why not do a commentary on, like, the original game, or maybe your favorites, A Crack in Time? Because I'll say this right now, my favorite game of the series, at least so far, is A Crack in Time, and it is one of my favorite video games of all time. But I decided to go with Quest for Booty, not just because it's the first free platformer game of all time, and not just my introduction to the series, but also because it's smaller and easy to record. Normally this is probably one of the shortest Ratchet and Clank games ever. Like, it's very short, and back when I was a kid, I could beat this in like 3 hours. Nowadays I can beat it in like less than 2 hours. It's pretty interesting how fast you can beat this game. But to give you guys some context of what's going on, so this game, Ratchet and Clank Quest for Booty, is a follow-up to Ratchet and Clank Tools of Destruction. Tools of Destruction was the first Ratchet and Clank game released on the PlayStation 3, so the first game to have HD visuals and big production values, and it was also the first game in the series to put more emphasis on the story. Of course, it's not like previous games didn't have stories. They did, and a lot of them still resonate with a lot of people to this day because they poke fun at stuff like consumerism and capitalism and stuff like that. But the Future Saga that started with Tools of Destruction and kind of ended with A Crack in Time, then there was Into the Nexus, which acted as an epilogue to that saga. They wanted to put more focus on the story, where they actually got a writer to write the stories, unlike the previous ones, which were just stories that were made by internally at the team of Insomniac. So That's interesting. But the thing is that the Ratchet Clank Future series, Ratchet Clank series in general, up until a correct time, I want to say, is definitely a product of being rushed and stuff like that. But that isn't something that I would find out until years later. But alright. I kind of dodged the question earlier as to how I was introduced to the Ratchet and Clank series. Well, I gotta take you guys back when I was a little kid. When I was like 8 years old? Yeah. Because I remember, but back when I was like in 2009, I was pretty young, and uh, the only console I had at the time was a Nintendo DS, and I didn't get many games for Nintendo DS. Eventually, I got some games for it later on, but I never really got that many games for the DS. So there's lots of experiences that I didn't get to try until way later via like the Wii U Virtual Console or at all. For example, I still have yet to play the DS Castlevania games. Um, and just simply because I never really got the games on the DS, and I also wasn't invested in Castlevania when I was a kid, but that's a story for another time. But put it simply, the Nintendo DS was originally not mine. It was given to a relative of mine, and then that relative just stopped playing it, so pretty much gave it to me. Um, but then I remember late 2009, I wanted a PlayStation 3 because I saw an ads for it when I was young. The reason why I wanted to get a PlayStation 3 is because of a game that was coming out at that time called iPads. And that game was made by one of Sony's internal studios, London Studio, who this who an iPad is pretty much a pet simulator where it's this cute little cat monkey like animal where you pet, you do tricks with him, you do play with him with the PlayStation Eye. That's why it was called iPads, because PlayStation Eye, which is the camera accessory for the PlayStation 3. And I remember when I saw the commercial, my dad was with me, and he saw that I got really excited when I saw oh my god, this cute kitty, you got, I am more of a cat person. Thank you for asking. And I wanted it, and my dad was like, you know what? Let me get my son a PlayStation 3, and he got me a PlayStation 3 that Christmas of 2009. It was 2009, also the year where the PlayStation 3 got a whole lot cheaper instead of like the initial $5.99. It was now $2.99, way better price. But the bundle that he got me was an interesting one because it was an iPad bundle that came with Ratchet Clank plus Rebooty as an extra game, and he also got me 2 additional games: the Beatles Rock Band, which I think was more for my sister rather than anything, and Pro Evolution Soccer 2010, which is a football game, and I don't really care about football, so needless to say, after a while, I just didn't give a shit about it. but Ratchet Clank Crystal Rudy was not a game that I really asked for. I didn't know about it. It just came in the bundle. But I decided to try it, and even though I was struggling at first, I still remember, like, I had to get grips with the camera, I had to get grips with the platforming challenges, which are not even complicated by now. Like, especially for me now, it's like, this game is not really that hard to me nowadays, but I remember when I was a kid, it was very tricky knowing about these very simple things, but all because a lot of these things were brand new to me. Like this platforming challenge that you guys are seeing right now, which just makes some simple jumps. Yeah, I remember that I fell down so many times because I didn't know exactly when was the best time to jump, but it was with practice that I eventually got the hang of it. And I remember it took me a good while for me to beat this game, but when I did, it was really a celebration for me because yeah, the game is not long, but goddamn, it was the first 3D platformer I ever played. I'm not sure exactly when I beat the game. It probably was, if I had to guess, like a few months after I got it, because this is still when I was a kid, so I was getting used to this kind of stuff. But Ratchet and Clank, when I first played this game, did leave an impression on me. So much so that when a few days after I got my PlayStation 3, me and my dad made a PlayStation Network account. And that's how actually my name originated for him. My dad just decided to come up with a random username with Rhino Dino, and I decided to stick with that name ever since. So that's you thank my dad for that name. But but then it made an impression on me so much so that my dad, when we got to the PlayStation Store for the first time, he said, "Okay, just download the free stuff. Don't buy anything." And I'm like, "Okay." So what I ended up doing is that I downloaded a shit ton of demos. Like back then, I downloaded I just got so focused on the statement of just download the free stuff that I downloaded so much free stuff that some of the free stuff that I downloaded I couldn't even use or play or anything like that because I was a dumb kid who didn't know any better. Like there was so much free DLC that I got for games that I didn't have. or PSP demos because you could download them on the PlayStation Free Store. I didn't have a PSP at the time, so I couldn't download them. I could download them, but I couldn't play them. It was really funny how how much I did, but because of how much free stuff I downloaded, I also downloaded a lot of demos for the PlayStation 3, and one of them is many of them were Ratchet Clank themed. I downloaded the Tools Destruction demo, the two A Crack in Time demos, which I think I'll explain a little bit more later. The All for One demo, the Full Frontal Assault demo, which the game is actually called Q Force over here in Europe. Were they cowards and did not want to use the innuendo title? I don't know. But I guess Q Force does make sense in my opinion because the game is about the Q Force. um, and then I'm not sure if Into the Nexus got a demo. I don't think so because I don't remember playing a demo for that one. But I remember for the last few games, for the games I just mentioned, yes, I played demos for all of them, and the Tools of Destruction demo was one of the ones that stuck me the most. I mean, all the demos stuck with me, but I'd say Tools of Destruction and Crack in Time were the demos that stuck with me the most because they were the most memorable. And I mean, with Tools of Destruction, that demo, it was just that first stage, and in the context of the game itself, if you were to get the full game, that stage you can have after you play it the first time, you can never come back to it. It is They say that the Tachyon army invaded it, so you can no longer access it, and it doesn't really matter much because there's no missable stuff. There's nothing like that. It's just pretty much a glorified tutorial stage, just introducing you to the game and also introducing you to the wonderful world of the PlayStation 3. But before I got the game in 2014, so it took me almost 5 years for me to get that game. I played that demo a bunch, and I remember just goofing around with it a bunch, like trying to see if I could glitch out or break out of bounds and explore something. I still remember those days. And the Crack in Time demos, that was interesting because there was two demos. There was one for Ratchet and one for Clank. So because they both had their own full-on separate gameplay styles in that game. Well, of course, other Ratchet and Clank games also give you the opportunity to play as Clank separately, but those sections were not as plentiful as the sections, and it only happened here and there. With the Crack in Time, it was going to be full-on half and half Ratchet, half Clank. I think there's still a little bit more skewed towards Ratchet, but the Clank sections were more expanded compared to previous titles. And the interesting thing is that as a Portuguese person, the Clank demo was dubbed in European Portuguese, but the Ratchet Clank, the Ratchet demo was not. It was in English, and I never understood why. It's like, and I still don't understand to this day. Maybe it's because the demos came out at different points. Maybe the Clank demo came out later, or maybe they had finished dubbing that section of the game, but not the later one. I mean, in the context of the game itself, the moments, the planets where you play as Ratchet in the demo, takes place later on in the game than the Clank demo. The Clank demo is like the second time you play as Clank in that game, and the first major time you play as him. So it takes place earlier in the game. So I guess it makes sense that it was dubbed, now that I think about it. But I remember having a bunch of fun with those demos, and it's also I did play, like I said earlier, I played the Q Force demo, which that one is one of the demos where the save data actually transfers to the full game. I was a bit confused when I first got it, but then I was like, oh yeah, they did tell me that. Okay, yeah. I mean, part of me kind of, I mean, I appreciate that as an option, but I rather like. But most of the time, I actually prefer, especially if the demo itself doesn't cover that much. I rather just like, okay, I played the demo just to try out the game, and then if I ever get the full game, I'd rather just like not connect the save data, so I can replay those segments for the quote unquote first time. It's not really the first time, but quote unquote first time when I actually play the full game. Nowadays, I actually don't play demos nearly as much as I used to back then because when winning games, I am confident that I will like it. So I'm completely fine with just like winning until I get the full game and stuff like that. I guess I only download demos nowadays if it's for a game that I'm like not completely sure or I really want to play something of the game. So I I download the demo, but that doesn't happen most of the time. Or sometimes, I mean, and a demo is announced for a game, and I just completely forget to actually download it, or I don't feel like downloading it. I mean, recently, a game that was developed by Goodfield, the same guys behind Wario Land Shake It, Kirby's Epic Yarn, and Yoshi's Woolly World, and Yoshi's Crafted World as well. There's this game called Bakeru. It's finally being localized outside of Japan and it's coming in like a few weeks. There's a demo available, but I haven't downloaded it yet, and I'm not sure if I'll download it because I don't feel like it currently. That's just it, you know. Um, or even if I want to play the game, maybe I just play the game, just buy the game, and think about the demo later, or never. Yeah. So yeah. But I downloaded a bunch of demos when I was a kid, and I experienced a bunch of Ratchet Clank. I still remember the All for One demo. That's a game. The Ratchet Clank All for One is still one of the, outside of the PS2 games, it's still one of the few games from the series I still have yet to play, because it's interesting. Thinking about the Ratchet Clank series, that was a series I was all over when I was a kid. I wanted to get as many games as possible, but nowadays I'm very on and off with the series, and because of me not getting a PlayStation 4, and still trying to get a PlayStation 5, I kind of fell off with the series, and what happened there? Anyway, glitches. Should I explain the development history of these games? Later. I explained it later. But yeah, I kind of fell off with the Ratchet Clank series because I did not get a PlayStation 4. I got a Wii U instead, which is a purchase that I do not regret because it allowed me to experience a whole different side of gaming. Because I didn't have a Wii, so Wii U also allowed me to experience Wii games, and I have great memories with that one. But so I don't really regret not getting a PS4, but I will say that one of the reasons why I want to get a PS5 is to play the PS4 games that I did not get to experience. Mainly, especially games from series that ever since, I got the Switch, ever since I became an adult, that I got to experience, like the Yakuza series, or Mortal Kombat series, or others, Or maybe, I'll finally try Uncharted for the first time. Who knows? Or, God of War. I want to try that series one day. There's plenty to choose from. There's plenty to play that I want to experience. And eventually I do want to go back to the Ratchet Clank series with the reboots and Rift Apart, which Rift Apart looks great. And I as a Ratchet Clank fan, from what I've seen, it looks really good. And I'm very curious how the story will turn out when I play it. I do know that this is a character voiced by Robin Ankin Downs, who I very much like that voice actor. So I'm curious how his role. I'm curious to see him. Alongside other Ratchet Clank voice actors like James Earl Taylor, who has played Ratchet ever since the second game, David Kay, who has played Clank ever since the first game, which is very interesting. How David Kay's natural voice is very different from how Clank sounds, and he decided to talk like this, which made he decided on during the audition to make a very unique voice for Clank, and I very much like it. But speaking of voice actors, I think this is a nice segue to the European Portuguese that you're seeing all over this game. It's why didn't you record this in English, Rhino? Because I like to showcase Portuguese. Okay. So Portugal is a small country. We are only like 10 million people. And because of that, we don't tend to dub that much stuff. Like, no, normally because we don't have enough people to dub it, or the budget, stuff like that. So, when it comes to films and TV shows, we only really dub stuff that is like animated or made for a younger audience. We do not dub a lot of live action films. And the live action films we do dub are very rare. Like, the Sonic movies came out recently, those were dubbed. But stuff like, let's take for example The Matrix, or many Marvel movies, with the exception of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy for some reason. Those movies never dubbed, never dubbed. Like, you want to hear a Portuguese Wolverine? You gotta look for an animated series like I think Wolverine and the X-Men. Maybe I think that was dubbed to hear a Portuguese Wolverine. Of course, European Portuguese Wolverine, because Brazil they have the people. I think they have at least enough budget, so they dub a lot of movies. But we are just not capable of that. We just don't have the people. That's all. And that's how it rolls. But with PlayStation decided to invest a lot into European Portuguese dubbing, and because of that, a lot of their games are dubbed. So God of War 3, that was dubbed. Ratchet Clank games ever since Size Matters, all been dubbed. Uncharted, dubbed as well. So there's a lot, and Last of Us as also dubbed in Portuguese. So there's a lot of games that were dubbed in Portuguese. This is a major contrast to Nintendo, who only started putting in games in European Portuguese with the 3DS era, and even then, not many of their games are in Portuguese. The only games that I really come to mind are Mario games and Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. And even then, it was only Wii U and 3DS. Smash Ultimate did not get the treatment. For some reason, they decided to not make a Portuguese translation for that game, even though it probably would have been less taxing because you don't have so many fucking trophy descriptions to translate anymore. So I still wonder to this day why they didn't like bet on Portuguese, even though we're now on a platform where more people would, we're gonna buy, because the Switch is popular in Portugal. It's thanks to the Switch that Nintendo is now well known once again in Portugal. So I really do wonder why Nintendo Portugal did not invest in making a Portuguese translation, especially when they started to invest in so many other languages like Chinese. Well, that one makes sense because there's a lot of people, but still, I wonder. But for PlayStation, they're very consistent. Because of that, they have pretty much won the audiences of this entire country. And yeah. Ratchet. And they pretty much won the audiences of people over here. So yeah, it's like but also for me, it's interesting because you get to see movies, movies. Well, your games are kind of like movies, are they? So you get to see games, you get to see plots with very serious themes being dubbed in Portuguese because of the nature of what we decide to dub or not. Live action films, we may have harder themes and stuff like that. Normally are not dubbed. Not to say that animated films can't have immature themes. Oh, they can, but let's be real, not a whole lot of them have. And I mean, something that is like tradition that I constantly see over here is that we see random low budget animated films just that have nothing interesting about them, just get randomly dubbed, and are like, oh, this one has these Portuguese celebrities, go check it out. It's like, yep, that's definitely the random animated movie that got dubbed in Portuguese, alright, that everybody is bound to forget in like a week. If that, So, for example, when I see a movie like Ratatouille, which I'll say right now is one of my favorite films. One of my favorite films of all time. Get dubbed in Portuguese. Yeah, it makes sense why it got dubbed in Portuguese because it's a Pixar movie. Those get dubbed in Portuguese. But it's a film with a lot of mature themes that normally aren't talked about in animated movies. The other movies that come close to it are like The Incredibles, and that was directed by the same guy. So wowee! But seeing a movie like that being dubbed in Portuguese and seeing a plot like that being dubbed in Portuguese just makes me very happy. So seeing stuff like, I mean, I've never played Uncharted, I've never played The Last of Us, but seeing those being dubbed in Portuguese with the sincerity and the seriousness of the original plots is great. It makes me happy because it means also more variety, and we get to see actors shine in different types of plots, and I like that. And but of course, this game also makes sense to get dubbed in Portuguese, and I really enjoyed the dub. I mean, word yeah. Okay, so Ratchet's voice actor is interesting because, like I said earlier, Ratchet and Clank games started getting dubbed in Portuguese ever since Size Matters. The PS2 games, PS2 exclusive games, the original trilogy and Deadlocked, known as Gladiator over here, by the way, were not dubbed in Portuguese. But ever since Size Matters, they were. And Ratchet's voice actor was different in Size Matters. And maybe Secret Agent Clank, I haven't played that one yet. But at least in Size Matters, his voice actor was different. But starting with Tools of Destruction, they brought in Tiago Teotonio Pereira, I believe, to voice Ratchet. And the reason why I have to say I believe, and I guess, and I think, is because, unfortunately, outside of the English and Japanese voice actors, no other actor from any other region is credited in the credits of any fucking game. So we have to go by deduction and similarity, which, I mean, thankfully, because there's not that many actors in Portugal, voice actors in Portugal, we can kind of, and because a lot of them have very distinct voices, we can kind of deduce which one is which. I mean, I think it was thanks to the Ratchet and Clank movie that we finally started to really know who the actors were, because I think the actors for the movie are the same as the games, which that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, it was thanks to that we started to deduct that. I mean, and others because their voices are just so iconic. Because that's the thing, I like a lot of them we can recognize their voices because, you see a lot of the same actors like play different characters in different media. A very big example of this is the actor Rui Paulo. He's the actor that's behind Mickey Mouse here in Portugal. He's the Portuguese Mickey Mouse, but he's also the voice actor behind Donkey in Shrek. And in the Ratchet and Clank series, he voices Dr. Nefarious. So even though he does slightly different voices, like different voices between them, Mickey Mouse is a little ha ha, Donkey's like Shrek, it's I can hear his voice. It's easy to deduce for people who are in the know. Like it's easy to deduce. Oh yeah, that's Rui Paulo, and he's a great actor, so makes sense. He's also one of the OGs. He's been around ever since 1990. He's been around ever so long time ago. But I like the definitive start. I'd say 1994, which was 30 years ago, for 1995, and this actually kind of ties into what I said in my Cast of Illusion commentary, which if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. Where I said that in 1994 with The Lion King, it was the first time where animated movies, Disney films, and animated movies in general started getting dubbed in European Portuguese, because until then Disney movies or animated movies in general we just got the Brazilian Portuguese version. And when we did The Lion King, that was a big bet. Like because if that wouldn't have worked out, back to Brazilian Portuguese, which I mean, I guess a lot of those of us would be fine with, but we kind of like having our own Portuguese. No shame to Brazilians, by the way. I've heard some of their dubs, and they have done a great job. I mean, I grew up with some of the Brazilian Portuguese Disney dubs, and they have done great. I mean, the Aristocats Brazilian Portuguese dub is still very, very well known within my family, and probably a lot of other families here in Portugal. But we kind of do like having our own Portuguese. So so The Lion King was a big bet, and it worked out super well. Like I've heard, it's widely considered to be the second best dub of the movie ever, right behind the English one. I am not sure about the veracity, the truthness of that comment, but if that is real, then holy shit, we did an amazing job, which surprises me. But I mean, I can say that the dub is great, but it's also like I'm biased because I grew up with it. It's kind of like for me. I try my best to not be biased with this kind of thing, but I know that I have to admit that's like I'm gonna be biased no matter how you look at it. It's just that I'm at least trying to be honest that I'm being biased and not hiding it because I know that I'm Portuguese. I know that I'm automatically gonna like a lot of European Portuguese dubs. So, but I do say I like most, but not all. Like there have been a few European Portuguese dubs that have disappointed me before. A clear example of that is Megamind, where the European Portuguese dub is not bad. I'll say this right now, it's not bad. But the thing is that it does suffer from a flaw that I see with some European Portuguese dubs, where they bring in a celebrity. And now the guy that they brought to voice Megamind was Pepe Rapazote. And he's very recognizable in like telenovelas, soap operas, because those are a big fan here in Portugal. Just like Spain and Mexico and stuff like that. There's in Brazil probably. So soap operas, and the guy is a good actor. There's nothing like what I will say. Nothing that I will say afterwards can stop the fact that like Pepe Rapazote is a good actor. No, I'm not denying it. The thing is that I don't think he was the best guy for the job, especially because Megamind is a very expressive character. Pepe Rapazote is more of a drama actor. He's more known in drama. But Megamind is the guy to like being very anime. He's kind of like an actor when you think about it. All he's acting out his schemes because, well, if you guys have any if you guys know the plot of Megamind, is that he's not necessarily evil. He was just kind of conditioned to be evil because that was the only role that society put him in. But because of that, and because the fact that a lot of the screams that he does in the film were not dubbed for some stupid reason, it makes the dub feel super disconnected and super half-assed, in my opinion. Pepe Rapazote's performance as Megamind in a lot of aspects, it's not bad. It's just that I really believe that, first of all, they should have dubbed all of it, including the screams and all that stuff, and not just kept Will Ferrell's original ones. But them also keeping a lot of Will Ferrell's original screams and laughs and all that stuff kind of also makes me think that they were not 100% confident with Pepe Rapazote's performance. That, yeah, it's like, it makes the dub feel very, when it could have been a lot better. But because of Pepe Rapazote's drama background, the scene in the rain, which I will not go into detail, but the scene in the rain where Megamind and Roxanne, talk and discuss, the thing that happens during that part of the movie, the dub for it was really, really well made, in my opinion. Like the no, from Megamind, like both the English and European Portuguese versions knocked it out of the park. I think it was really well made. But yeah, as for other actors in the going back to Ratchet Clank West Woody, as for other actors, I think well, Rusty Pete, he's voiced by Carlos Macedo, which has been an actor in lots of stuff, so much stuff that I can't necessarily list off the characters he's done, but he's done a lot. And but I will put the highlight on Captain Slag, because Captain Slag is, well, he's voiced by Carlos Vieira de Almeida, and he's one of the older voice actors. I think at the time of recording, he's in his 70s, so he's maybe almost reaching his 80s. I'm not sure. At least in his 70s, and so he's pretty old. He's been around for many years, so the guy has a lot of experience, and he's also been in, like, I think he was also in theater. He's also a normal actor and stuff like that, besides being a voice actor. So yeah, the guy has experience. But the thing about him is Captain Slag is that he puts out a very similar voice to what he did to Long John Silver in the Treasure Planet Portuguese dub, which Treasure Planet is also a movie that I really, 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 really like. And the thing is that maybe some people might find it a bit charming. It's like he's putting on the same voice for, kind of similar characters, both being pirates and both being antagonists in some way, shape, or form. But it fits so well, in my opinion, and And while I've gone on to listen to how Captain Slag sounds like in the original English dub, Robin Ankin Downs voicing him. I think he does a great job as well. I cannot unhear Carlos Vieira de Almeida. I normally, when I think of Captain Slag, I do think more of the European Portuguese dub, not just because of my inherent bias, but also just because I just think it fits so well. Like, yeah, he doesn't have the pirate accents, because when it comes to these kinds of accents, we can't really translate them though. So when it comes to like a character being inherently British or inherently having a specific accent, those are just normally lost in translation, unfortunately. Or maybe we bring in a new accent, but I'll talk about that in a bit. Um, but in the case of Captain Slag, I just think even though he lost the accent, the "Yo, me matey," I think the new voice they brought in was great, honestly. But speaking of adding in accents, that is like the biggest thing that happened with Shrek, because Shrek is known by many people for his Scottish accent, but that's not something that we can't really translate and dub here in Portugal. Um, so what we did was we actually did something a little bit creative, to where we decided, hey, what if he had an accent from the Trás-os-Montes region, which is a region here in Portugal. It's more like então lá de cima, Shisha Panico, something like that. It's a bit hard to translate, but I think you get the picture. And because of that, it made the voice we gave to Shrek stand out super much, and it became in Shrek also became very very iconic in Portugal because of that, and it really helped. It's looking back, Shrek is a very simple movie, but it's a really well made movie. You know, but of course, yeah. But that's the wonderful thing when talking about European Portuguese dubs and just dubs from my region, is that there's a lot to talk about that transcends, that transcends like a single movie or a single piece of media. We're talking about actors, we're talking about people, and a lot of people outside of Portugal are not going to know any of this. And I know that some people outside of the country are definitely going to mock us for some of the European Portuguese dubs that we've done. I mean, Brazilians are very easily going to mock us for the Dragon Ball Z dub that we did, even though most of them probably don't know the circumstances of the dub and why the dub came out the way it did. And also the dub was really well received, even if it definitely is a victim of changing too much, being too localized, putting a lot of jokes to kind of and to quote unquote censor the violence, even though the violence was there. It's like, what? How? Like, okay, sure, that's your way to censor the violence, to make it more lighthearted. Add a bunch of jokes and pop culture references from '90s Portugal. But that dub is still is iconic for us because it's funny. It's funny to laugh at and to laugh with, because we only had what, like 7 actors voicing every character. Which, if you know anything about Dragon Ball, holy shit, holy shit, that's way too small for such a big cast. And the actors just had a lot of creative freedom, and because of that, it just easily became one of the most popular shows on the channel Seek at the time. So, yep. But but yeah, I just find this all fascinating. But I guess to go back to the PlayStation 3 stuff. So I experienced a lot of demos thanks to my download spree, and a lot of stuff that I probably wouldn't experience otherwise. Sometimes I even want certain games to have demos, just so I could experience them in some way, shape, or form. Nowadays, that isn't quite the same because, I was a kid, now I'm an adult, so times have changed. But uh, I remember playing a lot. Like, for example, it was thanks to just me downloading a lot of stuff that I got to experience like Cooper with a few at a time, and I remember enjoying that demo. I remember I even experienced some games that I even downloaded a bunch of Gran Turismo demos. They weren't demos; they were like a GT Academy League or some shit that I barely participated in. But hey, it was the first time I ever experienced something Gran Turismo, which I wouldn't experience Gran Turismo again until years later, because I still remember when my dad was like, "Hey, don't you want to get like a Gran Turismo game?" And at the time, like I went into my virtual racing in Daytona USA commentary. When I was a kid, I wasn't really into racing games at all, so I didn't really want Gran Turismo at the time. But now I have Gran Turismo. I have Gran Turismo 5 Prologue, Gran Turismo 5, and Gran Turismo 6. Although I still have yet to play Gran Turismo 6 because that game has like 20 gigabytes worth of updates, and because of a specific glitch that with Gran Turismo 6, I don't know what glitch it is, but if you download all the updates at once, you cannot. The game will crash. It may break your game. So what you have to do is download each update individually, like download like one or two updates and then go into the game and then go back. There's like guides online how to do this, but it's because of that and because of how much I would have to invest in doing that that I still haven't yet played Gran Turismo 6. But eventually I just want to play it and just try it out, like how I did with Gran Turismo 5, because it's more to try things out and not have a big blown playthrough, because those are games that are designed to last a whole long, that's for sure. But still remember that at the time. I said no, but I did. So it was until the PSP, until I got my PSP in 2020, that I got Gran Turismo PSP, and just doing some small missions and stuff like that. I actually really ended up enjoying the game that I want to experience other Gran Turismo games afterwards. There's still plenty of Gran Turismo games I've yet to play, but whenever I get a PS5, I love to play Sport and 7 just to try them out. And also I love to play the older ones, 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe 4 Prologue, just for the shits and giggles. You know what? Why not try just spend $100 on a physical copy of Gran Turismo HD Concept just because I can? That game was made specifically to be the prologue to kind of like be, because originally before they decided to do Gran Turismo 5, they wanted to do Gran Turismo HD. And now they had a whole plan for it that I forgot how it went. Maybe I'll talk about it in the future in some other commentary, but they had that plan. And what happened is that because of developmental issues and stuff like that, they just decided, let's just bank on 5. And they kind of left the HD concept behind, and that demo got delisted. That demo was HD concept. Pretty much what it is a glorified demo that came out on Christmas of 2006, so like a month after the PlayStation 3 launched in Japan and North America. And it pretty much was like a little taste. You only had like one track, 10 cars. Well, one track times 2, because you could also play the mirrored version. And pretty much the only modes was like time trial, and I think that's it. So it was a very simple demo just to get your taste with Gran Turismo on the PlayStation 3, which, I mean, for a Christmas gift, I think that's pretty neat. But still. But there are physical copies of that. It's just that they were only in Japan, and they're all super expensive. So, yeah. But maybe it would be a solid ground for a commentary if I feel like spending like over $100 on the game. I don't know. I'm dumb. But yeah, but other games that I did try out, well, there's plenty. I mean, probably one of the fondest memories was Little Big Planet. I think I remember playing the demo when I was very young, and I remember enjoying the game because that game is like a 2D platform, 2.5D platformer, but it's very physics-based. It's very much reliant on the Havoc engine, which was used in a bunch of games at the time, and still used to this day. It's a very popular physics engine used by many third-party developers, and that game is just very unique because you could also, like, besides its story mode, you could share the levels, make levels and share them online. It brought in a sense of community, and while I tried to, I mean, I wasn't the greatest at making levels for that game, but I remember playing a lot of levels online and sometimes encountering people and playing with them. I never became friends with any of them because I remember my dad warned me that I shouldn't really don't expect friend requests from strangers, and I mean that was a good lesson. And, I stopped eventually, and I still have yet to make a friend from console from interacting on console, but I remember playing with randos online, and it was cool. It was cool. Sometimes they even helped me with the story mode, which for years I couldn't beat. Like there was always some levels where I couldn't really pass. I couldn't really beat. but eventually I was able to beat the story mode years later in 2020, uh, and um, and I was dumbfounded. I was like, "Oh wow, this is actually not that hard." This is just me being me as a kid, didn't know how to do any better. So, yeah. Um, but eventually, what happened with Little Big Planet is that I was actually able to get the game because in 20, as many people know, like 2011, Sony got hacked. It was a very big hack, and as an apology, they decided to make to give like 5 games for free, and you could choose one. And I chose Little Big Planet because one of the other games was Ratchet Clank for Booty, which I already had, so no reason for that. And I think the other games were just not appealing to me at the time. I think Infamous was one of them, and maybe one day I'll play Infamous, but not anytime soon. I don't know. I don't know much about Infamous. That's for sure. But I ended up picking Little Big Planet, and thanks to that, I got many memories of the game. I wouldn't play Little Big Planet 2 till years later, and when I did, well, a year or two after I did, the servers got shut down. That was a big loss considering the sense of community that Little Big Planet has, and pretty much all the games are dead now. Now that I think about it, so that's unfortunate. In terms of online, you can still play the single player mode, no problem, but one of the sense of community is dead. Maybe there's some private servers running around, but I haven't hacked my free, and I don't plan to do so for a while. Maybe only until after the store shuts down. I don't know. But yeah. But the PlayStation 3 did bring me a lot of memories, and the thing is that the PlayStation 3 is that as the years went on, I remember that I started playing less and less of it, especially after 2014. After 2014, I got the Wii U in 2015, like I discussed in some of my other commentaries, and then I would just focus on that. I didn't get anything else for my PlayStation 3, especially because as Sony was moving into the PlayStation 4 and stuff like that. So I didn't really get anything else for my PS3, but I started getting back into my PlayStation 3 in 2017 with Sonic Generations and Persona 5, and I think over the course of the years afterwards, I started getting a lot of games I originally did not get on my PlayStation 3. Like I got Sonic 06, I got Devil May Cry HD collection. I got the Metal Gear Solid HD collection as well. I got and Metal Gear Solid 4 as well. I got eventually. I got into the Yakuza series, and I played Yakuza 3, Yakuza 4, Yakuza 5, and Kenzan as well. I got to just play a lot of games that I had not played previously on my PlayStation 3, because in a lot of other games outside of my comfort zone that I wouldn't play as a kid, either because of age rating or just because I wasn't interested in them at the time. I know for a fact that when I was a kid, basically the games that I got were pretty much Sonic or Ratchet Clank games. I didn't really get much outside of that, with the exception of Little Big Planet and some of the demos. I mean, I had experienced some other games via demos, but not even all of them I would experience. I mean, for example, I don't remember touching the Uncharted demos, for example, because I think as a kid I wasn't interested. Simply wasn't. But I was more into Ratchet and Clank, stuff like that. Sonic, whenever he had demos, like the Sonic CD demo, that Sonic CD did have a demo. Well, Sonic 4 never got a demo, but I eventually got to play those games later on, and yeah, I mean, I have my thoughts on them. I already said them in my Sonic Adventure commentary, but I mean, commentaries aren't linear. I can probably just reiterate my thoughts later, possibly in a future commentary, stuff like that. But yeah, the PlayStation 3 is a console that gave me a lot of memories, and it also stood out a little bit because I remember that my dad actually got me a TV alongside shortly after I got my PS3, because he knew that's okay, we don't want the PlayStation 3 in the living room, because then because I would just hog up the television all day, so he bought a separate TV for my bedroom, and that's how I've been playing PlayStation, and that's how I've been playing the PlayStation 3, and it was also my own DVD player, so if I ever wanted to watch a DVD, I could just watch it on my PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 3 could also play Blu-rays, and that was a big selling point of the PlayStation 3, but we never really got Blu-rays because outside of my PlayStation 3, there's no other Blu-ray player in this house. We never got it. We just eventually got movies digitally. And but eventually I did get two Blu-rays. The first Sonic movie and Final Fantasy VII Adventure Incomplete. Which I got on Blu-ray just because I felt like it, just because it would be cool. I kind of do want to get the second Sonic movie in Blu-ray, but if it's just gonna be like the first Sonic movie where the Portuguese dub is not included, then I don't know. I'm just kind of like it's so odd that the Blu-ray release of Sonic Movie 1 that I got did not include the Portuguese dub, but it included like what the Japanese dub, even though the Japanese dub wasn't gonna come out in cinemas for a few months, and I'm like, what? Because for some reason Japan got the Sonic Movie 1 later than usual. Same thing for Sonic Movie 2, and probably the same thing for Sonic Movie 3, which at the time of recording we're still waiting for a trailer of that. Hopefully it comes soon. It's this commentary. But yeah, but it was also. But I remember watching a lot of movies on my PlayStation 3, the DVDs that I had at the time, and I would just pop one in and just watch. And those were a lot of cool memories. And you know, in thinking about it, you know, eventually I would get a computer for my room. But when COVID-19 came and my computer had to be transferred from the office to my bedroom. Well, the computer that I have right now doesn't have a DVD player. I do have a separate DVD player that I can attach, but I don't always use it. And sometimes I'm like, you know what? Just watch it on PlayStation 3. Especially now that I have a capture card. You know, that's how I record these commentaries. So I just pretty much attach the capture card to my PlayStation 3, and then just go on OBS, start the PlayStation 3, and then watch it there. I'm watching the movie on my computer, but through the PlayStation 3 without having to get up, grab my DVD player, and then attach it to my PlayStation 3. Which, I mean, it works. Yeah, but to my PC it works, but you know, this is easier in my opinion. I don't have to get back. It's all the way over there. But yeah, I have a lot of fond memories with the PlayStation 3, being that it was the first ever home console, and it made me a PlayStation fan. But weirdly enough, again, like I said earlier, I did not get a PlayStation 4, and there was also the PlayStation Vita. I wanted a PlayStation Portable. I definitely wanted a PlayStation Portable. I wouldn't get one until 2020, but I wanted a PlayStation Portable because there were a lot of games that I wanted to try out, mainly Ratchet Clank, because those games were not on the PlayStation 3. You know, they were on the PSP, and you know, in retrospect, size matters. It's kind of like, but still, I wanted to play as many Ratchet Clank games as possible. You know, but I did not get it. I did not get a PlayStation Portable. But I do remember one distinctive memory is that with the PlayStation Vita, it was actually the first console ever, and probably the only console ever, where I actually got to try it before it launched in Europe. So, because I remember PlayStation Portugal was doing an event in like the middle of Lisbon, where you could try the PlayStation Vita before it released. And I remember I tried it and I was like, this is interesting, but I actually wanted the 3DS more because for me, yeah, it's cool that the PlayStation Vita got 2 analog sticks. That's awesome. That's a great improvement over the PSP. Thing is, I always found them to be very small, and and whenever I touch them, it feels like they're gonna break at any point. Like they feel so fragile to me. And over the years, I never really got a PS Vita, and I still don't have any interest in getting a PS Vita because the library just never was there for me. There was like 1 or 2 games where I maybe. But I don't want to get a console for just like 1 or 2 games, you know. Gotta give me multiple games for me to want a console. The PS5 is able to get away with it because of the many PS4 games I didn't get to try, and because my PC is just naturally not powerful. You know, if I had a PS4 and I had a powerful PC, I probably wouldn't get a PS5. But I do. But I do want to get a PS5. So yeah, hopefully we'll see when I get it. But I like to get it sometime. Maybe this year or next year. Let's see if the money is right. Because now PS5s are more prevalent. That's for sure. PS5 here in Portugal no longer has the stock problems that it had previously. Now it's just more of a money thing. Because it's kind of an expensive console. $550. Oh boy. But there's plenty. But it's interesting. I got my PS3, but I did not really get a PS4 in. Because the games at the time were not interested in me. I was really into Nintendo. Like, I really wanted a Nintendo console. I got a Wii U. And I wanted the 3DS as well, but I didn't get it till years later, in 2022. So, yeah. But, I have now, especially in recent years, I've paid more attention to the PlayStation ecosystem. And there's still games I want to try out. I mean, plenty of PS1, PS2 games. I've since tried them out, either through interesting means or I was able to buy them off the PS3 store. Um, or sorry, I had a drink. Or just simply, I've been paying attention to the game to play the PlayStation ecosystem, but it's also kind of sad how a lot of games nowadays are just kind of fall into the realistic graphics, third-person action adventure kind of game. There's not that much variety in terms of what they do. They kind of made their customers getting comfortable with the fact that PlayStation is all about these big budget games that are very cinematic, which is kind of like, yeah, they should exist, but they shouldn't be most of the library that they're offering. They should definitely have more variety, and PlayStation used to have that. Even in the PlayStation 3 era, there was still stuff like that, but nowadays you don't see that. The PlayStation 3, I can definitely admit that the PlayStation 3 started this transition to the PlayStation we see today, but it's definitely it definitely still has some variety. It still had the experimental stuff. But the PS4 was really the console where it's like, yeah, oh, look who it is. Bye, Quark. Yeah, this was a little thing. That's an Easter egg that the developers decided to put in. The Captain Quark statue, where he doesn't appear in the game, but he's a prominent Ratchet Clank character, and yeah, they decided to put him as the statue as an Easter egg. I wonder how the statue got there. I mean, to explain the plot of Quest for Booty, because we're almost an hour in and I haven't explained the goddamn plot. Especially because a lot of people are not going to understand it from the gameplay alone because of the fucking the cutscenes being in European Portuguese. So the plot of this game continues right after Tools of Destruction, where Tools of Destruction, how it ended was Clank got separated from Ratchet. I'm not gonna say how. I don't want to spoil it, but Clank got separated from Ratchet, and Ratchet is trying to look for him. It's actually very interesting that with how this game starts, you kind of get spoiled on Tools of Destruction, and considering this was the first Ratchet and Clank game I ever got, yeah, my first experience with Ratchet and Clank is being spoiled on the previous game. But Quest for Booty is pretty much a smaller Ratchet and Clank game that was made to basically just tie people over until Crack in Time. But the development of this game is, this and Tools of Destruction, especially Tools of Destruction. Like, okay, so Insomniac Games, very cool company. They've made a lot of cool games, right? They're not owned by Sony. They've made a lot of cool games, right? You got the Spyros, you got the Ratchet and Clanks, you got the Resistance, you got the Spider-Mans, Thing is that back in the early days, especially the 2000s, they had a lot of crunch. Crunch culture was at an all-time high with Insomniac Games. And it's kind of ridiculous that they still were able to pump out Ratchet and Clank games yearly, which back during the PS2 era was not super uncommon, especially as developers got used to free games after the PS1, Nintendo 64, and Sega Saturn generation. But it definitely was, Insomniac was definitely struggling, and this came at a breaking point during the Future Saga, because in Tools of Destruction, they still were they decided, how about we do a year for Resistance, because they created the Resistance franchise on the PlayStation 3 as a PlayStation 3 launch title. And we do the Resistance franchise 1 year, and then the next year we do a Ratchet and Clank game. So do them alternatively. There was still pretty big crunch, but at least they would. But their mentality was, at least our developers are not going to get burned out. Problem is that Tools of Destruction was that development was super crunched. There was a lot of stuff that was left on the coding room floor. There was a lot of stuff that was left for later that was not fully answered later because of the Future Saga's inherent rushed and crunchness. So there was some stuff. There was just some stuff that was never fully explained. And Quest for Booty was a game that was always even supposed to exist. What happened is that during Tools Destruction, Insomniac promised Sony that, oh, we're gonna be able to make a multiplayer mode just like the one we did for Ratchet Clank Up Your Arsenal and Ratchet Clank and Ratchet Deadlocked. So, but they were not able, because of the amount of crunch that Tools Destruction suffered from. They were not able to do that. So when PlayStation started to start their plans to make more digital games for the PlayStation Network store, Insomniac decided, oh, as a way to make up for the lack of multiplayer of Tools Destruction. How about we do a small little a game for the PlayStation Network that you could buy for like 10, $15, and they did. It was like a small adventure, just tie people over to a crack in time. It was coming out in 2009. It wasn't even supposed to be called that. It was not called that at the time because they hadn't finalized the name, but it was under the code name of Ratchet Clank Future 2, and because of Quest for Booty, 2008 was supposed to be a year for Resistance. It became a year for both Ratchet Clank and Resistance, resulting in even more crunch and more shit. And this all came at a boiling point with A Crack in Time, where A Crack in Time, great game, love it, but it also had its content and was not able to answer and resolve all the loose ends that had been set up in Tools of Destruction. So, afterwards, how crunched, Sonic was, something had to give, and afterwards they decided to take their games more slowly. They made a brand new, they had enough money to make a new studio for Insomniac games, and I forgot which location, but that studio would later be responsible for All for One. And the mentality for that studio since the beginning, since they started development of that game, was always just take it easy, just take your time, and it did. In All for One, even though it's definitely a spin-off, is a game that, while I haven't played yet outside of demos, is a game that I can appreciate because it allowed Insomniac to fucking rest. Even Resistance 3, had to be. I think it was released later. I don't think it was released in 2010. I think it was released in 2011 because they needed the time to make sure that the crunch would not happen again. And nowadays, Insomniac has definitely learned, and they're now they're a way better company in terms of that. They no longer have crunch, but holy shit, the crunch that they did have at the time really did consume them, and almost killed the company, I'd say. I don't think it killed the company completely, but it could have killed it could have killed the quality of their products. Thankfully, never did reach that point, but the developers, I feel sorry for them. I do. So, yeah, Quest for Booty, all that it was a game that was made under a small budget, reutilized a bunch of assets from Tools of Destruction, and in a lot of, nowadays, people would just call Quest for Booty pretty much an expansion pack of Tools of Destruction, but this was still before the era of expansion packs, and DLC was not as big as it is nowadays, so what the game turned out to be was a small downloadable title for the PlayStation Network that actually got a physical copies here in Europe. So when I got the Quest for Booty in my PS3 bundle, I actually got the physical version of the game, which I'm not sure why we Europeans got a physical copy. I remember hearing once that it's because at the time, European download speeds was not as fast as North Americans, but I have nothing to back that up. That is just something I heard a long time ago. It might as well be a rumor at this point. So, but I do like that we did get a physical copy because I like my physical copies. I like physical copies of games, especially nowadays, where there's so much stuff regarding to streaming services and all that stuff. We really need our physical copies. Here's the thing. So especially someone who actually got to experience cloud gaming recently, and it worked out super well, with Halo 5 and Halo Infinite. It worked out super well. Rarely any stutters. It was played flawlessly. Thing is that I appreciate cloud gaming as an alternative but not as the main way to play games. The main way to play games should be to actually own them in a physical capacity. If you want to own them in a digital capacity, that's fine. But I myself prioritize physical because I can actually pick up the game and it will work. I don't with digital games. They could easily take them off to the store at any point. And while yeah, games in physical shelves also disappear after a while, at least you could find other copies in used game stores and stuff like that. With digital games, it's all in the company's control, and when a game's gone, it's gone, right? Unless high demand and they bring the game back if they are able to, because there's also like licensing stuff to worry about. There's actually a big campaign, an initiative. It's not yet like settled, but like there's actually an initiative that's being organized to stop destroying games so that uh, after a game's servers go online, you can still play the game. But that's more about how games already purchased, not about games being available in digital stores. So that's a bit different. But I do support that initiative. It's not law yet, and of course the initiative is made purposely vague so that then eventually, after the million people sign it, their then politicians can look at it and make an adequate law about it. But I do very much appreciate that initiative, and well, it's only for the European Union, but I'm part of the European Union, so you bet your ass I signed that. I even if it doesn't really affect me because I don't have any particular game that happened to me. I do want games to be preserved and being alive in some way, shape, or form. I don't want games to just die. And I buy a game and then just because it was tied to online servers, now I can't play anymore because the online servers are down. Like I can't even play single player content because all of it was tied to online servers, even the stuff that shouldn't be tied to it. Yeah. But that's a discussion for another time. So yeah, it's interesting how Quest for Booty came out the way it did. And it's interesting how Quest for Booty they decided to take one of the parts of Tools Destruction, the space pirate subplot, and decided what, let's make that its own game. Let's put Ratchet and Talon from the last game in this new planet called Planet Murdergraw, which is contrasting a lot of other Ratchet Clank games, which took place on multiple planets, and each planet was a level. This whole game takes place on one planet, and you discover and traverse many locations of that planet, which is something that we normally don't see in Ratchet Clank, which is interesting. It's also a Ratchet and Clank game where Clank is not here. Clank, you do see him sometimes, but you don't have Clank on your back. You can't access his abilities, so you have to be a bit more precise with your jumps. And yeah, it's very simple. It's interesting that the first Ratchet Clank game I've ever played was a game that didn't have Clank. But yeah, in terms of game structure, it's very simple. There's a lot of platforming challenges in this one compared to because actually, okay, let me structure this in a different way. So Ratchet Clank, like I said before, it's a platforming game that mixes third-person shooters. That it's a platforming third-person shooter game. All right. So one of the things that makes Ratchet Clank stand out is the mini guns that you can have and use. So you can have like a simple pistol, a bomb, you can transform enemies into some like a cow or something like that, or you can suck enemies away and then blow them, and that sounds whatever. And all that stuff. And the thing is that starting with the third game, Up Your Arsenal, the Ratchet Clank games started becoming more focused on the shooter aspect and less on the platforming. And the platforming challenges started becoming a bit simple. So with Tools Destruction, Insomniac Games wanted Ratchet to quote unquote go back to the roots and having more platforming challenges, which I can say they did do a decent job at. But there's also plenty of moments in Tool Destruction where you're faced with a lot of gauntlets and you gotta be prepared, especially considering that game's difficulty of you dying very easily. What I recommend is that if you're low on health or ammo, whatever, doesn't matter, go to the nearest shop and refill your health, because that's the coolest thing, is that in that game, if you go to a shop, if you just go in and go out, you refill all your health, and that is super helpful, especially in later parts of the game where it gets pretty fucking difficult. Um, but that isn't the case in Quest for Booty. In Quest for Booty, Quest for Booty, there are some gauntlets here and there, but not too much, honestly. A lot of it feels like this game does intertwine enemy encounters and platforming a bit better than Tools of Destruction, but that's because this game really does focus a lot more on the platforming and some puzzle solving, which is not difficult at all, but like the ones we just did. But it's still nice. It's still a nice variety, I'd say. Um, and it's mostly harmless, I'd say. But this game also introduces a new mechanic that wasn't in Tools of Destruction, which is the Omni Wrench. Can be used to move things around, like you're seeing right here. That was introduced in this game, and actually would become a main gameplay mechanic of Crack Time, which is actually kind of cool. Like, this game inadvertently teased a gameplay mechanic that would appear in Crack Time, which is pretty fucking cool. I yeah, and with Quest for Booty, and Quest for Booty actually addresses one of the main things that of Tools of Destruction, which was the difficulty of Tools of Destruction was really high. So what this game does is that for the first time in the Ratchet Clank series, you actually have a difficulty select. You can actually choose at the beginning of your adventure if you want easy, medium, or hard, and it kind of changes how much damage enemies will deal to you, and I think that's really it now that I think about it. I've never played this game on hard, and for the longest time when I was a kid, I always would play the game on easy, because, well, it was my first time playing these kind of things. But as of recent playthroughs, I've started playing the game more on medium, and it works. It's not even that hard, and I don't think the checkpoints are as bad as they were in Tools of Destruction, because Tools of Destruction, sometimes you got so far in, and then you die and you have to repeat a bunch of stuff all over again. No. This game, I'd say, does not... The checkpoint system is not nearly as bad as Tools of Destruction. And because of that, it allows the game to be a bit more consistent. And even if you die and you're pushed back, you're not pushed back too much. So that I appreciate. But also because this game is not really that long. One thing that you guys will see me that I'm doing right now is that I'm utilizing the weapons as much as possible so I can level them up. Because of this game's short length, the weapons already start at level 3, and you only really need to level them up to level 5. But of course, and I'm not the biggest fan of all these weapons, so some of them I kind of just had to force myself to use, just to see if I could level them up to level 5, or at least close to it, because, spoiler alert, I did not level up all my weapons to level 5, because it's a bit of a tedious process, and most of the time I'd rather just use the grenades, or the combustor, or the grenades. I wish I knew the English titles, but that is what you get when you play the games mostly in Portuguese. Haha. But, yeah, that's the thing. When you start out the game, you have access to most of your weapons. We actually decided to bring a few, and, they're the ones from Tools of Destruction, which makes sense. We just came out of that adventure in the context of the game's plot. And they decided to just bring a few because in terms of variety, just like, okay, you got a pistol, you got a grenade, you got the one that you put in a place and then beasts come out and just for the enemies, or stuff like that, or one that is just multi-targeted, or like that one, stuff like that. But then after you are sent to the whole Far Islands, you lose all your weapons, but you regain them over the course of the game. And by this point, I have most of the weapons. I have pretty much all the weapons back. But what happens is that after we're done with this section that's coming up, if you have enough money, if you break every box you see, you will have enough money. You will have enough money. So, uh, wow, why is my brain going to ring? You know, it's because it's summer and I don't have the fan on, just so there's no noise in the background. Uh, yeah, my throat is getting kind of wonky. I should drink. I should drink. That feels good. You should hydrate yourself now. um, but I was as I was saying, you after this whole sequence, you are able if you get enough money, you can actually talk to the smuggler, o contrabandista, as we say in Portuguese, and you can buy the last weapon, which is actually already at level 5, and which is the alpha cannon or the alpha. It's the alpha disruptor, but because it's already at level 5, it has a different name of the alpha cannon, and it's the most powerful weapon in the game. Actually, I remember that in my most recent destruction playthrough, because I used that weapon more, it actually helped me a ton. And that's actually a little guide that I have, is that whenever, if you are interested in playing Ratchet and Clank Tools of Destruction at any point in the future, here is my little tip. Do not waste money on every weapon. Only get some. Only get the ones that you are confident you will like. And save money so you can get armor upgrades. Because armor upgrades are the most important thing in Tools of Destruction, because if you already die in like 2 or 3 hits, or 3 or 4 hits with them, imagine how it would be if you didn't have the armor upgrades. You'd probably die in like 2 hits or 1, regardless of how much health you have, because that's how broken the difficulty is in the damage is in general in Tools of Destruction, which thankfully was fixed here. And it's probably also a consequence that the game is shorter, so you don't have as much time to level up, gain as many experience points to level up and upgrade your health. So maybe they tuned the Insomniac games probably tuned the difficulty and the damage with that in mind, you know. So yeah. Oh shit. You know, I was trying to grab with the slingshot, but for some reason it activated my gun instead, and I was like, oh shit. Well, that fucked me up. But yeah. And I will say that yeah, it's just it's just better because everybody in terms of difficulty is better. But again, I recommend playing Tools of Destruction first, because you know, you might as well get the story first. And that's interesting, because it's interesting that I still have yet to play the original trilogy. I still have yet to play the original Ratchet Clank games. I want to. I have seen the plots. I know what they're about. It's just finding the time. And the thing that I've considered is that, you know, I don't have a PlayStation 2, but I do have a, you know, I have a PlayStation 3, obviously, as you can see right here. And what's in the thing is that the PlayStation 2 games were actually re-released on the PlayStation 3, and I've wanted the Ratchet Clank trilogy for years, but I never got it. And now the physical copies of it are really expensive. You know, they easily reach like $60. No problem. They're actually very expensive. So something that I've considered is that maybe one day I just buy the digital versions, because that would come up at like $25. Like if I could get the digital versions separately, they each cost $10, which are amazing prices for these games, from what I've seen. Yeah, they're amazing. But getting them all together would cost $25, which is amazing. So maybe I just get the digital version first, and then one day I just buy the physical version when the money is right, you know. Because I do really like Ratchet Clank, and especially now after replaying Tools of Destruction, Quest for Booty, and eventually I want to replay Crack of Time to finish off the Future trilogy. I do want to go back to Ratchet Clank and the PlayStation 5 whenever I get it. I also want to play the 2 games that I mentioned, the PS4 reboot and Rift Apart, because Rift Apart looks really good. And the reboot, I mean, it looks solid. It's just that the plot, from what I hear, is not the greatest. It doesn't really adapt the original game's plot that well. So, yeah. But in terms of gameplay, from what I hear, it's solid. So, yeah. At least there's that. And it's just a bunch of other games. But, you know, I kind of do want to go back to the Ratchet Clank series and just just play more of the games. Just get my fill with the series. Did you know there was also some games for mobile phones even before smartphones were a thing? There was like Ratchet Clank going mobile. It was like for old Nokia phones, and I'm not sure if I'll ever get to play that game. Probably not, but it's an interesting thing that exists. You know, there's also Secret Agent Clank, which I haven't heard the greatest things about. But hey, I played Size Matters, might as well. And you know, Size Matters, I might as well review it someday on my backlog, which I think I forgot. Uh, you know, I'll try to link the if I remember. I'll try to link my backlog in the description because that's the place where I do reviews nowadays, and I think people like them. From what I've seen, I've been trying to do kind of like a Street Fighter marathon. Right now, I'm on a bit of a break. I've been trying to review a lot of Street Fighter games, and the next one I'll review whenever I do get back to Super Street Fighter 2, because I just finished reviewing Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting, and that was an interesting video to review. But I've also explained my history with Street Fighter series back during my Alpha Trilogy commentary. That was still a commentary I really enjoyed doing, just because I could just geek out about fucking Street Fighter. Because I fucking love Street Fighter, dude. But yeah, another thing that I actually do in the Quest for Booty is that Quest for Booty, what it does is that, okay, it's a very linear adventure, and you know, you can't really, because of its linearity, unlike other Ratchet Clank games, you can't really go back to previously accessed areas. You may go back to them later, like Coolfar Island, but you can't access all the parts of that area during your revisit. So, and you know, that's, you know, considering the game is really short, it's not bad, because I think this game probably incentivized multiple playthroughs, I'd say. Especially because this game is actually a game that I played a whole lot when I was young. After I beat the game for the first time, I remember that I beat the game plenty more times when I felt like it, because it was so easy for me to just pick up and just play and then beat the game. It was really cool. But one thing that I knew about, but I did not know completely, was the weapon upgrades. So in Ratchet Clank Tools of Destruction, you could get this separate currency outside of the bolts, which the bolts are the main currency of Ratchet Clank, called Raritanium. Raritanium was used to upgrade your weapons in multiple facets, like having more range, having more ammunition, having more power, etc. You know, typical skill tree shit. And they were even put in a skill tree. Thing is, because of how this game is really short, they did not bring that back. But what they did is that if you have a keen eye for areas and stuff like that, you will encounter one upgrades per weapon. And in this commentary, I actually go out of my way to showcase the upgrades and to showcase to get all the upgrades. And I remember that one of the last playthroughs I did of Quest for Booty, I got all of them except the final one, because I forgot exactly where it was, and I missed it, and I couldn't get back to it unless I loaded up a previous save file, which this game I think does autosave. But if you want to save in specific locations, you gotta, you know, go to the options menu and save in that location if you want to come back to it later. So I remember when I was a kid, I put a whole bunch of save files on Ulafar Island, just because I loved exploring that area so much. It was really peaceful, and I just liked the platforming challenges that came with the turbines that you guys saw earlier in this commentary. So, yeah. But now this time around, I redeemed myself, and I got that last upgrade that was actually for the Alpha Cannon. And yeah, it made me feel good. Yeah. As this playthrough is actually almost coming to a close. I mean, as you guys can see, we still have like around 24 minutes left. But the thing is that now we're done with the Darkwater residence. I forgot the name. The Darkwater Island and stuff like that. We're now going into the end of the game. With the return of the Azurian Sea, now with new level design, and us fighting against Captain Slag, who in case you didn't catch early in the plots, because, and I wouldn't blame you because European Portuguese, he combined his Ed with the body of Captain Darkwater was his former enemy to become a Sly Darkwater who now constantly switches between the two, and it's quite the identity crisis if I do say so myself. But yeah, uh, I mean, it's a very simple story when you get to grips with it. It's pretty much just a giant quest for Ratchet to find a way to contact Clank to know where he is, so we can properly set up the events of A Crack in Time. Uh, but I do appreciate the small adventure. Like I know that a lot of like here's the thing about Quest for Woody. I know a lot of people don't like it. I know people are like, wow, why does this game exist, or why like this game is too short, or this game is pointless, or whatever the fuck. But like maybe it's because it was the first 3D platformer I ever played. But I find this to be a genuinely fun experience, and its short length for me actually benefits a lot because I could just go back to this game again and again and again and again and again, and just whenever I feel like it, and just play during the afternoon. I mean, when I was a kid, this, like I said earlier in the commentary, when I was a kid, this this game normally took me like, after I beat it the first time, it normally took me like 3-4 hours. Now, I'm surprised that this commentary is as short as it is. Like I got it in like an hour and 47. Like it's that's cool, honestly, and it just makes it fun to go through. Um, but yeah, I mean, when it comes to Ratchet and Clank, when it comes to European Portuguese, I've talked a lot, as you can see. It's pretty much the size of a feature length movie. You know, I remember in the earlier commentaries, especially the first commentary I did, the Super Metroid one, I talked a lot and a lot and a lot and a lot, and I've kind of thought to myself, can I ever do that, something like that ever again by myself? Can I talk to myself for like 2 hours and a half ever again, or more or less? Sometimes I even wonder, can I talk so much about something for so long? And the thing is that I remember in that commentary, I kind of just pulled a lot of stuff out of my ass, but it's also because at the time I was not thinking of making that a series. Uh, so, yeah. But now that I do think about, I do make commentaries, and I'm for, you know, I make a lot of commentaries, and I wanted to make it for a lot of different series. I have a bunch to talk about, but I try not to go too off topic, besides the main topics that I want to talk about for a specific commentary. But I know that it eventually will happen. I mean, what happened in the last commentary that I did is that me and Spring would constantly talk about anything but Super Mario Maker. It was funny, but it's also like, kind of goes to show about the game itself. But that's because also Super Mario Maker was not supposed to be a commentary at first, but I decided, fuck it, why not? But yeah, you know, something that I find interesting about Ratchet and Clank Quest for Woody is that, okay, Clank is absent, but because of that, Ratchet and Talwyn actually talk more. Because Talwyn Apogee was a character that was introduced into Destruction. And there was going to be a bunch of stuff related to her, but like I said previously, there was a lot of stuff that was left in the cutting room floor. And a bunch of loose ends that were not answered. One of the loose ends was her father's. Like, in Tools of Destruction, big mystery is like, where is Talwyn's father now? He's been missing for years. And that never got properly answered. I mean, it was said in a radio transmission in A Crack in Time that Max Apogee fled with another character, Andrew Claus, from the second Ratchet Clank game, somewhere else. But that's it. In terms of Talon's character and Max Apogee, that loose end never got properly completed. And in Crack in Time, Talon doesn't come back. She's just kind of left behind. So I think the reason is because Ratchet goes to another galaxy. So Talon decides to stay on her own, looking after Kronk and Zephyr, her two robot companions. But I think that's it. Like it's kind of bizarre, you know, look at it, right? But because of that, it kind of does make this game a bit stronger when it comes to the dynamic. Because while it's like there's no big character arc for Talwyn, she's more of a supporting character here, just like someone else for Ratchet to talk to since Clank is no longer here. There, her being here does make Ratchet have someone to talk to, and makes have Ratchet not feel so lonely in terms of interactions and stuff like that. Uh, Another thing that Quest really does is that you are able to choose dialogue options. It's very minor stuff and barely has an impact on the game, but it's very charming, and it's something that Ratchet and Clank didn't have previously. And I find that pretty cool. Now that I think about it, you can either something like you could either say something that Ratchet would say, or be Toodle hero, or you could be Toodle fucking dick and douchebag. It's like the place of I don't care or something like that. The I normally don't go with those options just because I'm too much of a saint. But I find it funny that the developers decided to include it. Even with the crunch development, developers still found time to put these small details and make the game as charming as they could make it. And I appreciate that. I tip my hats. I tip my hat to them. You know. But yeah, as we are nearing the end of this commentary, I mean, still a lot left, but I kind of want to just kind of just give my overall thoughts on the Ratchet and Clank games I did play. I'll start off with the games I didn't play, which are the original trilogy, Deadlocked, Secret Agent Clank, All for One. I still have yet to play that one. And of course, the PS4 reboot and Rift Apart. But the ones I did play are Tools of Destruction. Tools of Destruction is a game that I do enjoy, that I find fun, but its difficulty can be a bit too much. And sometimes I wish that the checkpoint system was better, that I could rely more on the armors, and overall the enemies didn't deal as much damage. Because if these aspects were fixed, I probably considered going back to Destruction way more than I actually do. With Quest for Booty, actually I'll leave that one towards the end because, well, this is the Quest for Booty commentary. Crack in Time, like I said earlier, Crack in Time is one of my favorite games of all time because it pretty much, in my opinion, perfects the Ratchet and Clank formula and just has so much cool stuff going around. Like the ship sections or the moons, which maybe I'll explain more later, or not. I don't know. Or maybe I'll keep it vague for you guys to find out. That's actually as a little bit of a tangent. Originally, since I've been playing these games to my friends recently, I've been playing the Future Saga. I actually wanted to not do this commentary until I played Crack in Time for them because I still haven't done that. But I decided, what the hell, might as well have another commentary in August. And I was like, you know what, I really do feel like making this commentary. I really have a lot to talk about. And even then, I could spoil on a Crack in Time. Even if they already knew a Crack in Time plot, if I spoiled it here, other people who do not know about it would get spoiled as well. So I'd rather be like, yeah, maybe not. Maybe I just won't talk about spoilers when it comes to that game. Might as well just you experience it yourself. And yeah, but Crack in Time is one of my favorite games of all time because, in my opinion, it's just perfect and it's a really fun game to play. So much so that I actually did get a Platinum Trophy on it. It was actually the first Ratchet and Clank game to have a Platinum Trophy because trophies were only added in 2008, a bit after Quest for Booty came out, or maybe it was around the time Quest for Booty came out. But Quest for Booty being a small downloaded title, maybe Insomniac didn't feel like it was worth it to make trophies for this one. I'm not sure. I would have to look at the release dates again. But after that, we have Full Frontal Assault, and gotta be honest, I mean, it was the first Ratchet and Clank game that I got after Quest for Booty, not counting demos. And I remember that I was like not jiving with it. I was not jiving with its tower defense gameplay. I was not really enjoying it that much, and I didn't beat it for many years until 2020, where I realized that I only had not much stuff left to do. It was just only a couple levels left because the game is not that long. A bit longer than Quest for Booty, but not by much. And then I beat it and I was like, it's not bad, but probably wouldn't go back to this one ever again. Or anytime soon. And then there's Into the Nexus, or just Nexus as we Europeans call it, which is, fun fact, the name of a cancelled Ratchet Clank project that never saw the light of day. I don't know what that project was going to be about, but there was supposed to be a project called Ratchet Clank Nexus. So that's interesting. But Into the Nexus kind of acts as an epilogue to the Future Saga. It doesn't answer all the loose ends, but it does bring back Talwyn. It does bring an interesting new villain, and just like Mario Galaxy and Sonic Lost World also have this anti-gravity gimmick, but Ratchet Clank already had been doing that in some capacity before with the magnet boots, so this is more just you can jump between portals and stuff like that, and anyway, it's fun. Just interestingly that Into Nexus came out the same year as Sonic Lost World, which also had a bunch of similarities to Super Mario Galaxy and anti-gravity stuff. But unlike Sonic Lost World, Into Nexus is a good game. Not a long one. It's longer than Quest for Booty, but shorter than Crack of Time. But it's a fun game from what I remember. But the thing about Into Nexus is that with Into Nexus, I remember that I wanted to get a specific trophy to beating it on the hard difficulty, and I thought that, if I switched the hard difficulty on the final boss before I beat the game, I would be able to beat it. But I couldn't beat it on the hard mode, and I just kind of stopped playing the game for many years because of that. Then I decided to come back to the game and just say fuck it, even if I say fuck it, just beat it. And I didn't even feel like restarting the game like I did with Tools Destruction, where Tools Destruction I couldn't beat it for many years because of the difficulty. But eventually, I came back to it, and I beat it. I was actually able to beat the game, and it was, and that was a big moment that was a big accomplishment for me. It's finally beating a lot of the games that I couldn't beat as a kid. But what Into the Nexus is just because I wanted to get a trophy and I couldn't do it, and I decided to just stop. Then I just started to come back and was like, fuck it if I can't do it. And I discovered that it wouldn't work either way because I was already too deep in the game and you can't get the hard difficulty trophy just by switching difficulty in the middle of the final boss. So, yeah, when you switch difficulty, you go back to do this near checkpoints. But even if you do that, it still wouldn't work. You have to play the game from beginning to end, and that I did not do. So, yep. But then, I still like the game. Maybe one day I will replay it. I think I should replay it one day. Just to see if my opinions would change or not. But I kind of do want to play All for One first. And interestingly enough, even though All for One is a spin-off and is focused on multiplayer action, and from what I hear, it is better played with other people, it is still a very similar length to other Ratchet Clank games, 8 to 9 hours. And I'm like, whoa, for a game like this, it's that long? That's interesting. And it's also similar to Quest for Booty, to where it all takes place in one planet, but you just go through so many areas of it, and that's interesting. I remember playing the demo, and I was by myself, but I remember playing the demo and enjoying it. Especially, the All for One demo, you could play on 2 levels. One of the levels was the first level in the game, the other level was the later level that you played later on. That was, on cliffs and stuff like that. I remember enjoying that level more than the first one. The first one, I still liked it, but I remember liking the cliffs level more, and yeah. I also remember that it was a bit off-putting for me. I remember that the All for One demo actually taught me what the L3 and R3 buttons were like, because they said, oh, with L3 and R3 you could do this, and I'm like, wait, where's the L3 and R3 buttons? It took me so long to figure out that the analog sticks, you can press them, and those are the L3 and R3 buttons. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, wow. I was that dumb. I was that naive back then. But yeah. As we're getting ready to finish off Captain Slag mixed in with Dark Rudder, I ran out of ammo and I was like, fuck it. Kaboom! Oh, I'll just let you guys hear the European Portuguese dub for a bit. I remember when I first played this game and I first beat it. When I got to this cutscene, it was like the funniest thing ever. It's like, oh, save me, Captain. I don't know why, which is funny because it's Higgs. I didn't really find it funny throughout the rest of the game or to his discretion. But that one scene where he's just like, "Oh, save me, Captain!" For some reason, I laugh at that every time. I don't know. My sense of humor is weird. But yeah, we beat Quest for Booty, and now we got the Fulcrum Star. I don't know how to say it in English, so Estrela Fulcro. And now we'll be able to contact Clank with the obsidian eye that's in all of our islands. Ooh, look at the effects. Ooh, Baduba. Wait. Ooh.
Se x é o coeficiente de A ao quadrado menos a improbabilidade da hipotenusa em zero absoluto, o
What?
expoente Bogan do denominador tem que ser igual ou menor ao número de abelhas na tua capota.
Wow. I don't know how math works. If X is the coefficient of A, and I didn't memorize the rest, then the rest should be the number of B's you have in your... I don't know the name, but oh, look, it's him! Ah! This was a great tease. Like, imagine if you were a fan of Ratchet Clank back then, and you beat Quest for Booty, and your reward is that you get to find out that Dr. Nefarious is coming back as the main villain of Crack in Time. That is so awesome, especially because Dr. Nefarious only appeared in, like, Ratchet Clank 3, and he was definitely one of the highlights of that game because Dr. Nefarious is funny, voiced by the incredible Armin Sherman? Yeah, I think that's his name. He does a great voice for him. Loud and funny. But yeah, now with Quest for Booty done, we're gonna be watching a long ass credit sequence, and I think that would be the best moment for me to say what my thoughts are. So, Ratchet Clank Quest for Booty. Ratchet Clank Quest for Booty is a game that means a lot to me because, just like I said, it's the first 3D platformer I ever played, and 3D platformers, I really enjoy 3D platformers. You know, I enjoy the Marios, the Sonics, maybe the Banjo-Kazooies, possibly Jak and Daxter, but we'll have to see about that. I want to play that game eventually. But I really enjoy 3D platformers, and this being the first one I ever played is, like, of course this game means a lot. And the thing is that it's not even a very amazing game or anything like that. It doesn't do anything super spectacular, super out there, but it's fun. It's a fun game. It's a game that, while not long, offers me a lot of fun. You know, I just really enjoy it. I like to play as Ratchet. I like traversing the locations, especially Holofar Island. I like doing these platforming challenges. I like fighting off the enemies and using the guns. And that kind of extends to the other Ratchet Clank games as well. It's like I like that I can jump and shoot. You know, maybe there is a reason why I did that Mega Man 2 commentary after all. Nah, I'm kidding. I like both. I like both Mega Man and Ratchet Clank, but I played them for different reasons. Because not just because one is classic Mega Man is 2D, Ratchet Clank is 3D, but also because the games just have a different feel. Just feel different in how they play. So, but I do like. But it's interesting how these two series that I really like both involve jumping and shooting. But Ratchet Clank was Woody for me does mean a lot because it introduced me to a whole new thing, and it was while iPad was the game that I wanted for my PlayStation 3, and I did play it a bit after I got it. But after a while, what happened is that the PlayStation for that game, you need the PlayStation Eye to face down, right? But to so that the iPad could go around your carpet, can walk around your carpet. The thing is that no matter how low I put it, never was at a good angle to where it showed me and him in the iPad. So because of that, I never got the best. I never really got the best position to play iPad correctly, and after a while, I just got stuck with it. And I mean, I just some of the missions that they offered got a bit too difficult, especially with the angle that I got. So I just stopped playing. Well, with Quest for Booty, I eventually beat it, but I replayed it a bunch of times, not only because it was one of the few games that I had for my PlayStation 3 at the time, but it was also a game that I really enjoyed. And I played a bunch of demos. I eventually got Sonic Adventure in 2012 after I nagged my dad so many fucking times, and he finally said okay. And then 2013 I got Adventure 2, and in 2014 I got Heroes, although that one I wouldn't beat till years later. But yeah, I mean, in retrospect, I do wish I had more variety in the levels in the games I would play back then. But it's also like it was just simply my interests at the time, and my interests at the time were mainly just platformers. And sometimes maybe there would be a game from a different genre I would play. I mean, I remember that I got also a lot of demos for PlayStation Move games, and it introduced me to a game that I wish didn't have the PlayStation Move because it's one of the coolest concepts of all time, Kung Fu Rider. But one day maybe I'll play that game. I'll actually get the game. I'll prep my room nicely and I'll play with the PlayStation Move, a new PlayStation Move controller because I need one. The other one, I think it still works, but kind of stinky. Like, no, don't want to use it. But yeah, I really like Ratchet Clank Quest for Booty, and I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary. So, with all that being said, as the game says right here, the adventure will continue at the end of 2009. So, hope you guys enjoyed this commentary, and see y'all next time.